Today's Captain America strayed far from the established canon of the character in a combined effort to modernize a very 1940s hero and to bring a very comic book origin down to earth. Starring an all-American sports hero, it took 2 bites at the television apple, but didn't manage to make it all the way to a series. This is the story of Reb Brown and 1979's Captain America and Captain America 2, Death Too Soon.
I'm glad you could finally come and visit us here. I've been wanting to show you our work.
Why? Why me?
Well, for one thing, everything we do here is based on your father's primary research. Were you familiar with that at all, Steve?
No, he never really talked about it much.
Your father developed and perfected the ultimate steroid.
On April 29, 1948, Robert Edward Brown was born in Los Angeles, California. His father had enjoyed a brief career as a singer and was working as an LA police officer, and Brown grew up playing sports, excelling in basketball, baseball, and football at Temple City High School. His achievements in sports caught the attention of college scouts, and he wound up with offers from 64 different universities to play college football, as well as an offer from UC Santa Barbara to join their baseball team. He decided on USC, where he received a scholarship to play fullback during the 1967 season. However, he was up against some very stiff competition on his own team. 1967 was also the rookie year of Orenthal James Simpson, and Brown would later recall, "I stood around and watched this new kid run, and I realized right that day that I was in the wrong business." Brown would transfer to another university and finish out his undergraduate degree, and after taking jobs as a bouncer and trying his hand at professional boxing, Brown would be discovered by Planet of the Apes makeup artist Dan Stripeke, who had co-written and was producing a horror film for Universal Pictures called, and I'm worried that I'm about to butcher this title, It was around this time that Brown professionally adopted the first name Reb. Registering with the Screen Actors Guild, he was told that there was already a Robert Brown among their members who had appeared on Perry Mason and Columbo and also starred in the ABC series Here Come the Brides. While SAG will register 2 actors who have the same name, it's always been their policy to strongly encourage actors to choose a different name to avoid confusion. Robert Edward Brown took his initials, put them together, and came up with Reb. Reb Brown, a very strong, lantern-jawed name, isn't it? Universal liked Reb Brown enough to want to get into the Reb Brown business. He would appear frequently in Universal Studios produced television shows. He was on Emergency, Kojak, The Rockford Files, The Eddie Capra Mysteries, and his football player's build landed him a lot of heavy roles in films, such as John Milius's Big Wednesday, where he played Enforcer, or Paul Schrader's Hardcore, where Reb appears as a bouncer who throws George C. Scott out of a sex shop and into the street. In 1978, while on the set of The Ted Knight Show, Reb Brown met actress Sissy Cameron. Cameron had appeared previously in Billy Jack as Miss False Eyelashes, and in The Happy Hooker Goes to Washington as Miss Goodbody, and she was part of the Ted Knight Show's regular ensemble playing the role of Graziella. In his bio for his official website, Reb recalls that he walked up to Sissy during a break and said, "You don't know it yet, but I am going to marry you." The two would be married 1 year later and remain married to this day. While Brown enjoyed an active career as a television guest star in the 1970s, It was the 1980s that would bring the roles that would turn him into a cult film phenomenon. Brown would land starring roles in a series of low-budget films that would hit hard with fans of B-movies, including Yor, the Hunter from the Future, Cage, Robo-War, Howling 2, Your Sister is a Werewolf, and Mystery Science Theater 3000 favorite Space Mutiny, which also co-starred his wife, Sissy Cameron. While none of these roles brought him anywhere near an Academy Award, they made him beloved of midnight movie enthusiasts everywhere. Brown's acting credits slowed in the 1990s, although he did guest star in episodes of Hercules, The Legendary Journeys, and Players. But after his Players appearance, it would be 14 years before his next professional credit as Sheriff Joe Kelly in the killer Bigfoot flick Night Claws. We've talked before about the impact Superman the movie had on the world of superhero cinema, but in television, that role had been taken up by 1978's The Incredible Hulk. Starring Bill Bixby and Lou Ferrigno as David Banner and the Incredible Hulk respectively, the show had been developed by Kenneth Johnson out of a combination of his love for Victor Hugo's novel Les Miserables and his absolute hatred of comic books. That's a flippant way of putting it, but it's not far off. Johnson had initially turned down the offer to develop the show because he didn't like comics. But after reading Les Miserables, he suddenly felt that he had a handle on how the show needed to be run, and also a desire to take the over-the-top sci-fi of the original comics and bring it down to earth. The show was a hit for CBS and Universal Television, and they scrambled to bring the rest of the characters that they had licensed from Marvel to the screen. The Amazing Spider-Man was the next series to air, with Nicholas Hammond as Peter Parker, but the show suffered from low episode orders and from being constantly shifted around the television schedule, and was canceled after 13 episodes split across 2 seasons. Doctor Strange would never make it to series, but the pilot, starring Peter Hooton, would air opposite Roots. Nothing survived being aired opposite Roots. Roots was a phenomenon. There was also a Human Torch series in development, but it never made it to a finished pilot. 1979 saw Universal coming to CBS with yet another Marvel-based series. This time they were throwing all their efforts behind Captain America.
You were almost gone when they brought you in here. We tried everything, but nothing worked. I made a decision on my own. I felt that the flag serum would give you that one chance, a chance for your body to use its full, latent recuperative powers.
So you used it, flag?
I used it. And you're alive.
The screenplay for the pilot was by famed television writer-producer Don Ingalls, whose credits at the time included Star Trek, Gunsmoke, Honey West, and Police Story. In the director's chair was Rod Holcomb, a relative newcomer who had directed 3 episodes of The $6 Million Man and 2 episodes of The American Girls. And who could be better for the lead role of Steve Rogers than former football star, martial artist, and conveniently under contract to Universal actor Reb Brown? Much like the other Universal adaptations that had come for Marvel characters before it, the pilot for Captain America played fast and loose with its comic book origins. Steve Rogers was a former Marine turned professional artist. He had never seen action in World War II. That was before his time, but his father had been a secret agent during the 1940s, and his love of his country had earned him the code name Captain America. After the senior Rogers is killed, young Steve is approached by government agents who want him to participate in an experimental super soldier program that his father had been working on. As part of the project, Rogers will receive a super steroid This formula, called the Full Latent Ability Gain or FLAG formula, can only be administered to Steve because it's based on his father's DNA. But Rogers has done his time dancing for the man. He's enjoying the life of an artist, touring America in a conversion van. But after an attempt on his life, he's given no choice. The super steroid is administered to save him, and he becomes America's superhero, Captain America.
You've been run off the road, you've been blown up, you've been kidnapped. Maybe you ought to get the message.
The pilot aired on CBS on January 19th, 1979. Response to it was mixed. Comic fans were unhappy with the changes to the original story, and audiences didn't like Captain America's uniform that prominently featured a blue motorcycle helmet instead of Cap's traditional cowl. That helmet, by the way, was actually forced on the production team because it was the only way the California Highway Patrol would allow the production to film on the freeways. Or at least so says Reb Brown. The first pilot may not have made a splash, but Universal wasn't done trying. They had a college football star, a custom motorcycle helmet, and a very expensive custom motorcycle and conversion van, and they weren't about to let this project go without a fight. Before 1979 was out, CBS would wind up airing a second pilot for the series, Captain America 2: Death Too Soon. This time around, the screenplay was written by seasoned veteran Wilton Schiller, whose credits included Dragnet, Ben Casey, Mannix, Leave It to Beaver, and taking over production of The Fugitive after the original producer, Alan Armour, left the show. Direction, meanwhile, would be handled by Ivan Nagy, who had directed episodes of Del Vecchio, Chips, and Starsky and Hutch. And in one last ace up the production's sleeve, the film's big bad would be played by none other than Dracula Countdown alum Christopher Lee. Be sure to check that video out next, and click like and subscribe if you haven't already. Always be plugging. CBS split the 2-hour pilot across 2 nights, with the second half of Death Too Soon serving as the lead-in for the second episode of their miniseries adaptation of Stephen King's Salem's Lot, which probably seemed like a great case of audience synergy to some executive somewhere. Ratings remained on the low end, but the real problem by this time was with the network executives. The suits at CBS were starting to worry about being identified as the superhero network. While The Incredible Hulk was still doing well for them, they looked at a schedule in which they had already tried Doctor Strange and Spider-Man, and where they had just finished Saturday morning shows of Shazam and ISIS, and they decided that the last thing they needed was another costumed hero. According to Reb Brown, there had been talk that even without a series, there would at least be 2 more movies. One crossover with The Amazing Spider-Man, and one with The Incredible Hulk. But those movies would never come to be. Death Too Soon would have a brief overseas release into theaters in France. It probably helped Universal recoup the budget of the production, which was reportedly $3 million. That's in addition to the $1 million they had spent on the first pilot movie. Universal would refocus its efforts on trying to produce a big-budget theatrical film with the character, as detailed in our previous video on Matt Salinger. And Reb Brown would meet Christopher Lee once more on screen in 1985's The Howling 2: Your Sister is a Werewolf. That's our video for the day. The Incredible Hulk was always one of my favorite shows growing up, and to this day, I have never forgotten the time that Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood featured Mr. Rogers visiting his friend the Incredible Hulk on the set of his TV series. The idea that Mr. Rogers and the Hulk were best buddies was just too perfect. Drop into the comments and let me know, who was your favorite 70s hero? Was it the Hulk? Maybe Reb Brown as Cap? Maybe even Doctor Strange? Or was it the obvious choice, the mighty yet poorly named for the modern day ISIS? While you're down there, hit like and subscribe and ring the bell. We have one more Captain America to talk about, and you're going to want to be here for that. And you're also going to want to stick around for more discussion on film and popular culture. Until next time, watch like it means something.